Hi, everybody. So today we have a few different things to talk about. Um, According to my notes, we are talking about both actors with Friends movies and actor movies with actors from Friends in them, as well as book based animated movies because there's some crossover in between one of those movies for both of these lists. So first of all, I think we're gonna obviously start with actors movies that Friends actors were in. Most of these movies were from the 90s and 2000s, from when Friends was on.
And we
And
just recently watched one of them with a one character with a minor role.
so the movie we just finished watching was the 2000 version of Charlie's Angels with Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and Cameron Diaz, and Matt LeBlanc was in this movie as Lucy Liu's boyfriend. Um, and the best thing about this movie, besides Matt LeBlanc being in it, is the soundtrack. My favorite song from the soundtrack is Independent Women by Destiny's Child. Um, we gave this movie an A minus because of all the cutthroat action that was in it. It was intense and kept us on the edge of our seats. The next A minus ranked movie is Marley and Me with Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson. This movie came out in 2008. And when I first watched it, I gave it this ranking because um, it was just fun to see how the relationship developed between Marley and Jenny, who is played by Jennifer Aniston, and also their kids with the dog. And the part that was the hardest for me to see was the part where Marley was about to die and Owen Wilson's character was taking the character to the vet, and Jennifer Aniston's character said goodbye to the dog. Like, I was able to relate to Jennifer Aniston the most in that scene because I lost my dog in 2015, and it was very hard to say goodbye to her, and I still miss her. Her name was Bianca.
And Bianca, for Jean's pet, was a small dog. And when I first knew how excited she got to see me, that was how I really started to overcome my fear of those dogs behaving in that such manner. But when I saw the movie Marley and Me, seeing this dog character go through those times with failing obedience school and being a little too excited for the owners, it was really exciting to see. But then, as she said, that when Marley was dying, then it got sad.
The next A minus ranked movie is Murder Mystery 2, which we previously reviewed when the movie first came out at the beginning of April. This is the sequel to the 2018 murder mystery movie. Uh, this movie stars Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler as a couple who goes on location to different countries to solve mysteries. And the best thing I liked about this movie was the cinematography, especially in the Paris scenes, and it made me want to go to Paris because I've never been to Paris. And the mystery kept us guessing the whole entire time. The same thing um, with the first murder mystery movie, which I saw with my mother before COVID-19 hit. So Murder Mystery 2 gets an A minus, and Murder Mystery gets an a a B plus. Oops, this keeps shutting off. I'm so sorry.
One
Um,
of the locations I remember from both movies, the best was Monte Carlo.
so the next two movies we are going to talk about are Romy and Michelle's high school reunion and the Ron Clark story, which we gave a B plus, which we gave a B to. Most of the other movies that we watched got a B plus, and we'll get to those in a moment. Um,
Now, the
so
high school reunion movie is the one that stars Lisa Kudrow, who played Phoebe on Friends as one of the two main characters.
And the fun thing about this movie is definitely the soundtrack because it has a lot of songs in it that were popular when I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. So it's a soundtrack worth checking out for the nostalgia factor alone. And the best quote in this movie is "I invented Post-its," which is said by one. I don't remember if Lisa Kudrow says that line or if Mira Sorvino says that line, but basically it is said during the reunion when they're asking what they do for a living. Um, the next the next movie that gets a B rating is the Ron Clark Story. We just watched this movie on Friday. It stars Matthew Perry as a teacher who gets hired in a elementary school in Harlem to teach a group of rowdy students. And this is probably one of my top 3 favorite Matthew Perry movies out of all of the ones that we have been watching. I really liked the character he played in this movie and how he inspired his students to be the best they can.
And
And
because of their big success, what the students went through in the real story of Ron Clark, there is a school named after him that just opened recently in, what was the state, Gene?
I'm pretty sure it's in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, and my favorite scene in this movie is the scene where they're doing the rap about the presidents, and it made me think back to my own schooling experience because I did a project and I think it was 6th or 7th grade where I did a rap song about the parts of speech. Of course, I don't remember that now. I have it on an old home movie from, and I think that VHS tape is probably not working anymore. But um, if I can remember the rap song, I can definitely post a separate video of it later. Did any of you in the audience have an inspirational teacher like Ron Clark? If you did, please feel free to share your story in the comments below.
And another thing I want to mention about in the story is the Harlem part of New York City is where it's mostly African American people. So, a couple scenes in that movie, like Recess, kind of played some interesting roles, such as double Dutch jump roping.
And as far as TV shows are concerned that star the Friends actors, currently we are watching season 1 of Cougar Town, which is the show that Courtney Cox was in after Friends. It started in 2008 and I think went until 2015. And her character in this movie, in this show, I mean, is definitely much different from Monica. Um, I don't know. Personally, I think Monica is a character I can more easily relate to than her character in Cougar Town, which her name is Jules. But yes, we give the show a B. And the Joey spin-off show, which aired from 2004 to 2006, um, Matt and I have not watched that together yet, but I'm ranking it based on my original viewing when it aired. Mostly season 1 because season 2 ended midway through the show because it got canceled. So I gave that a B. And then I recently did some research and found out that David Schwimmer directed some Friends episodes. And I can give those a B ranking also based on my previous ranking of them when they aired originally. We haven't made it to those seasons yet, but these episodes are the one with the truth about London, which I believe is in season 6 or season 7. And the one with the birth mother, which is in season 10, when Monica and Chandler go to Ohio to adopt the twins. And the best scene in this episode is the scene when Chandler is giving a speech to Erica about how Monica is a mother without a baby, and I just thought I just thought that Matthew Perry's acting in that scene was very powerful and emotional, and it made me cry the first time that I saw it. And we're not even to that point in the series yet. Right now, before we took our break, we were midway through season 4, and we've mostly been watching Friends on Nick at Night now, and those episodes jump all over the place from the various seasons. Like, for example, last night we watched the one with Monica and Chandler's Wedding Part 2, and the one where everybody finds out. The one where everybody finds out is definitely one of my top favorite episodes in Friends, for all the comedy and for the scene where Phoebe tries to seduce Chandler. Um, oops, this keeps logging me out. Okay, so for the B plus movies, we have our first one is 17 again, and let's discuss it. What did you like about 17 again?
I really liked how Matthew Perry's character started where he was in his 30s. But then we go back to where he was 17 again based on his basketball team. And then we see Zac Efron play the 17-year-old.
To me, 17 again seems like a more modern version of It's a Wonderful Life, because when you think about it, when Matthew Perry's character is driving through the rain on the way home from losing his job, he sees the high school janitor like on the edge of the bridge, and he like jumps off into the water, and then that's the scene where it takes him back in time to when he was younger. And the thing that was cool about this movie was that he uses the going back in time to fix his relationship with his wife, Savannah. I think her name was Savannah, and his 2 kids. And to me, Matthew Perry's character in 17 again is much like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life for those reasons. Um, the next B plus ranked movie that we have listed here is Fools Rush In. This movie came out in 1997 and stars Matthew Perry and Salma Hayek. It's a romantic comedy, and I really liked the relationship dynamic between Salma Hayek and Matthew Perry in this movie. And um, I disagree with Miss Mojo's opinion in their video. They ranked Fools Rush In number 4 in their list of top 10 couples in romantic comedies that had bad chemistry. They are wrong. In my opinion, I thought their chemistry was perfect. What did you think of Fools Rush In?
It was very nice to see a scene with the two trying to make love right away. But it was a message to how it was very different from Janine and I, because we took our time before we found out that we were in love together.
Perhaps we shouldn't be talking about that because it's personal, but that's okay. Um, the next, the next, the next B plus ranked movie is Madagascar 2: Escape to Africa. David Schwimmer does the voice of Melman the giraffe in the Madagascar movies, and we saw this movie at a party at our friend Katie's house before we moved away. I believe it was a party that she had at her house for like Halloween or Valentine's Day in like 2016 or 2017. So it was quite a few years ago. We haven't seen the other 2 Madagascar movies, so it is hard to rank the whole series as a whole. What did you like the best about Madagascar 2: Escape to Africa?
Well, I haven't watched the movie, so I'm not sure.
Yes, you did. Don't you remember when we watched the movie at Katie's?
Oh, you mean? Oh, that's right. We watched it at your other friend's house in Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Right, exactly.
I thought it was interesting.
What was interesting about it?
It was just the dynamic, the animals, and how they would go on a mission together.
What did you think of David Schwimmer's voice acting for Melman?
Well, he was all right, but it was just before I really understood Friends at all.
Right. Um, I just talked about Murder Mystery when I talked about Mystery 2. The next movie that's B plus ranked is The Iron Giant.
And this is an animated movie that's one of those underrated by Warner Brothers.
So, The Iron Giant came out in 1999, and it is the movie that Brad Bird directed before he did The Incredibles. Basically, my basic summary of this movie is E.T., but with the robot instead of an alien. Jennifer Aniston does the voice of Hogarth's mother, Annie, and Harry Connick Jr. does the voice of her boyfriend, Dean. The voice acting in that movie by the two of them was fabulous, and I really loved the relationship between Hogarth and the giant.
And also the setting in this movie, even though this was animated, was set in the 1950s or 60s in Freeport or Rockland, Maine.
Um, and Phantom Strider ranked this movie, number one in his best number one best ranked book based animated movie. I haven't read the book that the movie is based on, but now I want to get it from the library. And I would definitely agree with Phantom Strider's ranking of this movie in his video that he posted a couple of years ago. We will, after we finish talking about Friends movies, we will move into talking about the book based animated movies. But for right now,
And we have one more movie that we gave B plus rating.
um, the last movie with a Friends actor in it that we give a B plus rating to is The Whole Nine Yards with Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry. It's hard for me to watch Bruce Willis's movies now, knowing that he has dementia. It just makes me so sad. So in The Whole 9 Yards, in The Whole 10 Yards, Matthew Perry plays a dentist that gets mixed up in like dealing with the mob because Bruce Willis's character is a escaped murderer from jail, and they end up becoming friends. And I thought the friendship dynamic between Matthew Perry's character and Bruce Willis's character in The Whole 9 Yards was good. The comedy in this movie was really on point, and it mixed very well with the action. That's the thing that we did not like about The Whole 10 Yards. It was more action and less comedy in the sequel. That's why we gave it a C plus. Um,
And now we're going to rank a couple movies that we gave the B minus rating. And we're going to start off with Easy A.
Easy A came out in 2010, and it stars Emma Stone, in the lead character of Olive Pendergast, and it's about a girl in high school who is trying to get get revenge on an ex-boyfriend or something, right? What's the storyline with that?
No, I think it's because she was dressing up for A because of her virginity and trying to get revenge on her best friends. And this movie was one of the last to feature Amanda Bynes.
Before she had mental health issues, yeah. Why did we give this movie a B minus?
I don't know. Maybe it was because of the story or something else.
Lisa Kudrow plays the guidance counselor in this movie, and I think we need to watch this movie again, obviously, and maybe our viewpoint will change once we watch it again. We haven't watched it in a couple of years, so I think it's time to revisit this movie. And then once we do, we will review it again and maybe give it a different ranking if our opinion changes. Um, the next B minus ranked movie is
It's Three to Tango.
Three to Tango. So this has Matthew Perry, Neve Campbell, and Dylan McDermott in it. It came out in what year did it come out in? I think 2003.
Somewhere around that.
Yeah. So this movie was another romantic comedy. I really liked the chemistry between Nev Campbell and Matthew Perry. It was a little bit less sexually charged than Salma Hayek and Matthew Perry in Fools Rush In, but it was still a good on-screen relationship, I thought. And the thing I didn't like about this movie was how the whole plot line was how Matthew Perry's character was pretending to be gay when he really wasn't. That's the reason why I gave this movie a B minus, because I didn't like that whole plot line. I thought it was not very funny.
And his
But
character could have been a lot better at the relationship than he really was.
no, I mean, I thought the relationship was fine. I thought the chemistry between him and Nev Campbell was pretty good. Just not as sexually charged as those
Mhm.
relationship with Salma Hayek. But yeah, they had good on screen. They definitely had good on screen chemistry too.
Okay, do we have any more movies?
The only other movie we have ranked that we didn't discuss is The Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon.
This came out in like 1988, and yet the plot line goes back to 1962 in Chicago.
So Matthew Perry is in this movie as the best friend of the lead character, who is played by the late River Phoenix. River Phoenix died in like the early 90s of a drug overdose. He was also in Stand By Me, I think. And in this movie, a 17-year-old Matthew Perry plays River Phoenix's best friend. And I just wanted to make a note on his costuming because he has an outfit on that looks similar to something Chandler wore during Friends. It was like a sweater vest type of shirt. So I just thought it was really cool that was something that was a costume in a movie that represented what he would later wear in Friends. Um, so yeah, Matthew Perry's acting was really good for a 17-year-old, which was how old he was when this movie was made. But I didn't really care for River Phoenix's character. I thought, sorry, I thought that his character was too like overly sexually charged, and I couldn't get myself engaged in this plot, and I sort of fell asleep. Um,
And you have, and his father was really not happy with the way he was really treating the girls.
no, and neither was I. I thought that Jimmy was a sleazeball. So now we're gonna talk about book-based animated movies from Phantom Strider's top 5 book-based animated movies. Um, and what I decided to do was make a top 10 list instead of top 5 list because we've watched a lot of like the Shrek movies and I wanted to rank them individually. And we've watched most of the movies in his video, but we haven't watched Howl's Moving Castle yet or James and the Giant Peach. And once we watch those movies, the list is probably going to change a little. So the first book-based animated movie we wanted to talk about in our ranking was How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2018. In his video, Phantom Strider basically mentioned that he didn't think that he thought Benedict Cumberbatch's um, voice acting was fine, but the Grinch comes off as more of a grouchy neighbor than a villain, and I really agree with what he said.
It's
And
nothing like how the original Dr. Seuss version was in the 60s.
and do you prefer the original version to the 2018?
I do.
I do too. And I also like the 2004 live action movie with Jim Carrey as the Grinch. I thought that was one of Jim Carrey's best performances. Um, and it's one of my favorite Christmas movies too. Um, the next one is The Lorax. The Film Theorist is another YouTuber that has made a video reviewing this movie, and similar, um, Phantom Strider and the Film Theorist seem to have the same opinions of this movie. Basically, that the Wunsler and O'Hare are not really the villains. It's the consumers that are the villains. And they are the people who basically make the town what it is and turn it into the way it is at the beginning of the movie. And the environmental message about the truffula trees seems to be sucked out of the movie The Lorax, which I didn't really like because that was the whole point of the book in the original cartoon from the 1960s. So, yes, out of all the Dr. Seuss adaptations, The Lorax probably, how would you rank The Lorax in 2018 with a letter grade?
The letter grade for the Lorax movie I would give is a B plus.
Mm-hmm. And what about...
Because I really like some of the voices behind those characters.
Taylor Swift
as Audrey,
and Zac Efron
as Ted.
And Betty White as Grammy Norma.
That's right.
The late great Freddie White. So,
and don't forget about Danny DeVito as the Lorax.
Yes, he did very well too. The next book-based animated movie we wanted to talk about is Shrek the Third. How would you rank Shrek the Third?
Well, the Shrek the Third kind of goes a little beyond the first movies of Shrek, and I guess I would rate that B minus.
Me too. Did you have any favorite characters in Shrek the Third?
Mostly Shrek himself and Fiona, plus occasional appearance of Puss in Boots.
I liked King Arthur. He was my favorite character that was not in the original two movies. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Phantom Strider ranked this as an honorable mention in his top 5 best and worst book-based animated movies video, and he also talked about it in his top 3 claymation movies video. Now, I have never read the book of Fantastic Mr. Fox, so I would need to read it, but I liked the voice acting in this movie. George Clooney did the voice of Mr. Fox, and Meryl Streep did the voice of his wife. I just thought the animation in this movie was a little bit off-putting. It was kind of, like, scary. I don't really like the claymation. The claymation works better for me in movies like The Nightmare Before Christmas.
And also Chicken Run.
I haven't seen Chicken Run yet, though.
And then number 6 on this list is the adaptation of The Polar Express.
This is the only movie that Phantom Strider did not talk about in his video, and I feel it was I feel like it was not such a good thing that he left off this movie from his list, because it deserved a mention, in my opinion. And that's the reason I decided to talk about it today. The Polar Express is one of my favorite Christmas movies, and I grew up reading a children's book every year at Christmas time.
So did I.
And I really liked the scene when they get to the North Pole and they go into the Santa's workshop to see where all the toys are made. I just liked the imagination behind that scene so much. And my favorite song from the Polar Express is Hot Chocolate and Believe.
And one of my other favorite songs in the Polar Express movie was Christmas Comes Around. A very nice scene as the train is on the Arctic ice, almost into the North Pole and the Northern Lights. It's just when they get together and find out what Christmas is all about. Even if Christmas is not the best holiday the whole year.
The next movie in our list is Horton Hears a Who. This is my favorite Dr. Seuss movie, and I really liked how the Who village and the Who characters are all crisply animated in this movie. Horton is voiced by Jim Carrey, who is one of my favorite actors. Um, and it's good to see him in a more reserved, laid back role. Like most of his characters are like funny and very comedic. Like in movies like the movie that we just talked about, 2000, The Grinch, and also like the Ace Ventura movies and other movies. We haven't seen Ace Ventura yet, but we're planning to rent that next, and that will be reviewed at a later date. Um, Horton Hears a Who is one of the main focuses in the Seussical the musical, and I have been in that as one of the Who's, and it was my favorite. It was the reason why Horton Hears a Who and Seussical the musical are my favorite books and musicals based on Dr. Seuss is because I like the message behind it about standing up for what you believe in. And that's why I like Horton and Gertrude as characters, because they stand up for the Who's and how they're being treated badly. And Gertrude also stands up for Horton because he is being bullied by the rest of the jungle animals, led on by the sour kangaroo's antagonism. And I like how at the end she has a change of heart and decides to help Horton and Gertrude with raising the elephant bird with little kangaroo.
And also in the Who's village, the mayor has a bunch of children like you couldn't believe. But one of the children is Jojo, who is silent throughout much of the movie until he is the one who stands up for the Horton crowd and says that ridiculous word to really get the message.
The next book-based animated movie that we wanted to talk about is Shrek 2. One of the things that stood out to me in Shrek 2 is the song that the fairy godmother sings, Holding Out for a Hero. This is sung during the wedding of Fiona and Prince Charming, who is posing as Shrek in human form. I just think that is one of the best movie songs ever, and that Jennifer Saunders does so good singing it. And another thing I like about Shrek 2 is how this is the movie where Puss in Boots is introduced, and we get to see the chemistry between him and Donkey and Shrek, and I just love how those three characters interact with each other throughout Shrek 2 and the rest of the movies.
And this is the one where Shrek and Fiona get to meet Fiona's family.
Who are voiced by John Cleese and Julie Andrews.
By the way, Holding Out for a Hero was originally sung by Bonnie Tyler.
Right.
What's the next movie, Gene?
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the most recent movie in the Shrek franchise, and it came out last Christmas. It's basically talking about like Puss in Boots going into retirement, but how he doesn't really want to go into retirement, and he goes on a quest with Perito, who is a little dog, and Kitty Softpaws, who is voiced by Selma Hayek. And we meet also in this movie the Three Bears and Goldilocks. Goldilocks is voiced by Florence Pugh, and Big Jack Horner, who is Little Jack Horner, all grown up, and he was voiced by what was his name? Who voiced Big Jack Horner in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? John Mulaney. That's right. And I think my favorite voice acting performances in this movie were done by Antonio Banderas, John Mulaney, Salma Hayek, and um, and Florence Pugh. Um,
And the message that this movie provides in the very beginning is there is this cliche that cats have 9 lives.
right. And the villain in this movie is Death, who is basically represented by a wolf that is like the big bad wolf, I guess. And yeah, that is a very good analogy for what Puss is dealing with. And at the end of the movie, we see Kitty Paws and Puss and Perito sailing into far, far away. So this gives me a prediction for the next movie that they're probably going to be meeting again with Shrek and Fiona and Donkey. So if they decide to make a new Shrek movie, I hope that's what it will be about, because that would be really interesting to see. And my favorite characters in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish were Kitty Softpaws and Perito. How about you?
I like Puss himself, plus Perito and Key Softpaws.
The next movie that comes in the number 2 is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I remember briefly reading this book as a kid, and I remember liking it. I think the whole idea of making a machine that rains food from the sky is very interesting and very creative. I think my favorite character in this movie was probably the reporter, Sam, who is the love interest of Flint Lockwood, the scientist who makes the machine that makes the food rain from the sky. Um, my least favorite character is probably the mayor, because he is against Flint's invention. And it's interesting because Phantom Strider made a good point in his video that it's interesting how the townspeople never came down with diabetes because junk food was always raining down from the sky and there were no like healthy foods. But he says that it would have been boring if all that was raining down from the sky was salad.
Well, Janine, diabetes really has little to do with what you eat eventually sometimes, because sometimes it's a family medical thing. But I want to also make a point with in the original book, this was really a plot that the grandfather of 2 children, he was making a nice story about this town, what they called Chew and Swallow.
Right, that's the name of the town in the movie.
And when the food just keeps raining down and damaging, in the original book, the townspeople have to evacuate.
Exactly, yeah.
So we figured before the movie, how was this going to stop rain all this food down?
And well, you'll have to see the movie to see what happens because we provide no spoilers.
Right.
So,
And now, time for our top pick.
well, we talked about the Iron Giant already. We just talked about it when we were reviewing the Friends movies because Jennifer Aniston does the voice of Hogarth's mom. So
Okay.
we gave that movie a B plus, and we loved it. It's probably one of our favorite book-based animated movies.
Okay, we want to thank you for taking our time to listen in. And G and I, later this summer, will be back with more review.
Please leave comments below about 1, your favorite book-based animated movie, 2, your favorite movie with a Friends actor in it, or your favorite episode that David Schwimmer directed, and 3, who your most inspirational teacher was that you had that had a similar impact on you that Ron Clark had on his students in the Ron Clark story. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great week.